Attaching a sniper scope to a long-range muzzleloading rifle. William Hovey Smith, 2015. I'm the author of Extreme Muzzleloading, and here we attach a sophisticated Leatherwood 6x24 scope to a muzzleloader. This is Hovey Smith with Hovey's Outdoor Adventures. And like in many times in life, I started off doing one thing and wound up doing two or three more. What I started off doing was putting this rather nice scope on the Remington Ultimate Muzzleloader. This is a Leatherwood scope. It is what is in the trade called a sniper scope. It runs up to 24 power. It has very good adjustments, and you can even adjust it out to 2,000 yards. I mean, this is a good piece of optics for a muzzleloading scope, or any other rifle for that matter. And it is unusual in that I have it on Weaver bands that have two retaining rings here for added strength to keep the scope from shifting. Because this rifle develops considerable recoil when you use maximum level loads, like 200 grains of powder. Burr. Now, what we did was to get some tall Weaver bases. And when we installed the scope, what we found that the bell here would clear, not much, but you could slide a piece of paper under it. However, when I tried to retract the bolt, it caught right here. So I need to go up a little higher to give a little more clearance for the bolt function. Well, the usual thing is to make a shim and put under the bases. And I've done that. This is a piece of steel. It's inexpensive stock, and I have trimmed it down so it fits this base underneath. Now on Remington rifles, the rear sight base is flat, but the front one is curved. So you need to bend your shim so that it will fit in the curve. At least better than it would otherwise. Now, okay, we've done that. Put it in the vise, clip vice grips on it. Okay. Not the smoothest thing in the world, but it'll work. Now, these are very small, tiny pieces of metal, and I have to precision drill some holes. So we're going to use our friendly shoe glue that you know and put it together. Now, once I have an adhesive out, I usually glue everything up that I needed. And, well, this includes fixing a door lock. And also, this pair of shoes, the soles are separated in two different places after a trip to China. Not that the Chinese trip had anything to do with it, but the soles separated, and so I have them glued together. And here, as you see, temporarily restrained with duct tape. About the sight bases and shoe glue. Because these are such puny small pieces of metal, holding them underneath a drill press for precision drilling is difficult. I mean, I could hold, I guess, a piece with a vice grip on a corner, but sort of, that doesn't work very well. So what I'm going to do is to glue the metal to the base with shoe glue and glue it to this piece of wood. Okay, now this I can put on the drill press and run around and precision drill the holes right dead center. Since no threads here, I don't have to worry about damaging anything as if I had it mounted on the gun, which you don't want to do. You don't want to drill through and damage those threads. So we're going to put a little glue on here, glue these together and glue it to the base, and then let it set, and tomorrow we'll actually do the drilling. One thing I'm going to do is take a little alcohol here and remove any grease off the base here. It's easy going to be permanently set together. Okay. Put that down here. Line it up. And similarly, We have this one. Now this one is curved. So one thing the shoe goo will do is to take up some of these irregularities, probably don't need. Center it up. That's pretty good. I get a little seep out here on the edges, which is just fine. We're going to see what we need to do about gluing to the base. Wood, you don't take much. And this will do for the flat one, right here. Press it down. This is a little more problematic because you have only really two bonding areas, one here right at the edges. We're going to do a little bit on the edges here. We'll see if that will stick firm enough to hold it when we drill. This one will, I'm sure. The second one, I don't know. We'll just have to see. Well, that's that. And so the next thing we will do is actually drill these holes out. This is the old drill that I rehabilitated, and it still has its creaks, groans, rattles, and shakes, but we've adjusted it up now to drill the last of the 4 holes needed in these bases. The cement is holding on both the bases itself as well as to the wood slave block. So now we're going to position and drill this last hole and get it as precise down the center as we can get it. There's a cable here that's needs to be shifted over in the right place for it to work. Okay. All right, put a little tension on it. That's good. Start it up. Get the metal. Good, 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 good. I'll know we're through when I start turning up wood. Did we get through? Not quite. We'll see if we can hold it by hand. Yeah, now we're through. And so we now have 2 holes drilled through these bases. Now I have to, of course, clean up these a little bit, but the holes are good. And break this one free from the wood itself. One of the thrills and challenges that you don't get if you just work on digital stuff is you don't take the risk of damaging your object doing something like putting a chisel on it. And now we're going to try to separate this from the wood by giving it a hard rap here with this chisel and see if we can break it loose from the wooden block. That angle should be about right. There it went. Bang. This is still irregular on the bottom, so I'm going to dress this first with a file and then with a stone so it'll bed as flat as possible with the receiver of the rifle. We have progressed to the point that this surface here, which will bear on the rifle, is so smooth that it slides across this oiled stone like glass on glass. And you also note that the screw threads penetrate it very, very easily indeed. Now this is a little more problematic. Remember, we bent this piece to fit a curve and we put it in the vise, and so it's not exactly altogether smooth all the way across. We've taken a file and we've dressed it a little bit, and we're going to attack it a little bit more by using this piece of emery and a round rod. That will remove the final excess glue as well as any little bits of metal that remain. Now this is about as good as can be done in this circumstance. Now you see we are getting some abrasion and some sound here. So we're going to work this for a while. Now that's sounding better. See how we look. Okay, that's looking and feeling better. I still see a couple of small areas of glue right here, just a very thin film indeed. If I were teaching in a gunsmithing school and a guy came with this kind of work, this is D-level work, not even quite C. And the only reason it makes D and isn't a failure is because it does function. It will work. Under combat situations, this would be fine, but not for professional level of gunsmithing. You expect a much finer job. First off, he'd have access to better tools. Secondly, he would be using actually shim stock, there is such a thing, and be able to use forming dies to get a much better fit of this to the barrel contour. So there are better ways to do it, and it can be done much better than I have. And now we're going to see if the holes were sighted with sufficient precision to actually align the bases straight. I'm not going to cinch them down within an inch of their life right now, but we'll see if they line up well. That's success. One did. Okay, forward one here. When doing some of this kitchen table gunsmithing, I have sometimes gotten away with sighting only 3 or 4. But with this rifle and so much recoil, you want them all to fit. Okay, yeah, this is biting. So, okay, that one's going down too, so. All right. Line up. We've dropped the scope on the bases now. And yeah, they line up well enough to fit. Hand tighten them up a little bit. Again, this is not the final fitting. I just want to make sure everything works before we finalize things. We've got now much more clearance here. And let's see if our bolt will work. Bingo! Did the job, guys. You have bolt clearance. It's not excessive, but it'll clear. So we have done the right thing. We have moved the scope up just enough for everything to positively function. Because if you start moving it too much up, well, then you have some sighting difficulties. And if you don't move it up enough, then the gun doesn't work. The gun works fine. Even if you pull the bolt all the way up as far as it'll go, it still doesn't rub. So, all right, that's good. We now have our Leatherwood scope mounted and ready to go in a manner where the rifle functions well. And we're going to sight it in with round ball loads first, and we still have some Georgia turkey season left. So take it out and see if we can get a turkey with it, assisted by cannon. And also, later in the season, work up some longer range loads for deer and other big game. But now, this is Hovey Smith, reminding you to hunt what you eat and eat what you hunt. Be legal, be ethical, be safe. Goodbye, God bless, and see you next time. This is the long-range gun scope combination that I'm going to use for everything from turkeys to deer to even larger game if I get out and make some western hunts.
Now, I love the gun, but I hate those 200 grain loads, so most of the time I'm going to be shooting 150s, and here are the specs on the scopes. Now, I am the author of a series of books, including Extreme Muzzleloading, Backyard Deer Hunting, and an 8-book ebook series on muzzleloading guns. Now, the most useful of these for many people is shooting and maintaining your muzzleloader. And I have had a number of 5-star reviews on this little booklet, so this one is really worth having. For more information on my books, blogs, and more than 400 videos, you can go to my website, www.hoviesmith.com. Good hunting and good eating from the outdoors. Goodbye, and God bless.